digital address is just one part of that ecosystem.
Okay. I just want to read to you what some civil society organizations have been saying so far, especially from Imani, who think that your quest to create a formal economy through the use of mechanisms such as this one and the national ID may be difficult if you have no means of verifying these digital addresses with physical addresses. And they think that that is something the Communications Ministry has failed to do.
We've just started. They should give us time. Like I said, we're building an ecosystem. And so we are getting there. These digital addresses are linked to physical addresses, are linked to postcodes, will be linked to your mobile phone, will be linked to your national ID. So it will be linked to an individual who lives in that location, who is ultimately traceable, identifiable. And very soon they would see where we're trying to get to. So it is not just initiatives in isolation. We're building a digital economy. And all these are bits of those pieces which, once the puzzle is complete, will make us all see clearly.
How soon will this puzzle be complete?
At the pace at which we're working, by this time next year, we should be well on our way. Okay. I'm very confident that by this time next year, if we're not done, we'll be nearly there.
Yeah. But what has the feedback been so far?
One feedback I got, which I'm hesitating to put on there, I'll tell you off air. It's been phenomenal. And it has made it possible for all manner of small businesses to also jump onto the bandwagon. I think it's been the most downloaded app in this country within the time
I've seen
span.
the numbers for Android and iOS.
Yes, and I think it's and all this has helped push the publicity, which they're getting for free. We're spending an enormous amount of money to publicize this because it entails attitudinal change. It entails a new way of doing things, and we're rolling it out nationwide. And so we really need to drum it home to people who may not be too comfortable with these newfound ways of doing things, to try it and see how it works, and so we're driving a whole publicity campaign over that. But the feedback has been good. We've got some useful suggestions as well, which were the technical people are considering as to how to improve the system, which I think is wonderful. As with any technological stuff, you think you've got an amazing product, but somebody sitting there can also suggest that, if you did it this way, you might get even better results. And so we're open to all that positive feedback as well. I've taken a bit of a bashing, which is also fine. I mean, all's fair in love and war. You take the good with the bad, and then you roll over and you continue going. But so far, the interest has been phenomenal. And I'm very glad that tech-savvy people have also taken a keen interest in it. I'm particularly excited about it because it's a product developed by a young Ghanaian. And if it works, and we know that it will work, it showcases what kind of talent we have in this country, which we can build upon. And the beginnings of probably a software industry are also staring us in the face. I know of other amazing applications that have been developed by young people, which have won international awards. I was introduced to a young duo, a group of young people who've developed this BISA app. It is a health application which enables you to ask any health-related question and get answers from health professionals. And it was showcased at the ITU a couple of years ago and won the award as against applications from India, the US, Israel, all over the world. So it means we have the beginnings of a world-class industry here. And technology knows no borders. So if we nurture this space, grow startups, help them to build on this burgeoning tech entrepreneur industry, we might have a real money earner for the economy, maybe 5-10 years from now. Okay. So I'm keen on developing this space as well.
Okay, I have to take you back on one of the submissions you make about the publicity. Is it costing us 3.5 million cedis as being claimed?
I believe so. At least that's what my information is. But it is not just branding a bus. It is a whole publicity campaign for a year. And it entails billboards, media campaigns, television, radio ads, all kinds of. You've seen the Jack, where are you, popping up all over the place. That's part of it.
Some say that is quite a gargantuan amount for publicity.
Well, if you look at how much media costs, even taking an advert in your station, how much that costs, and you extrapolate that over a year, I think you realize that it is not that much, because it is a sustained campaign: print, electronic, social media, billboards, and all that. And it entails people going out into the communities also to engage one-on-one. People are going to be assisted to download this app and shown its functionalities. So on a whole, I would have loved to have gotten it for free. Unfortunately, a lot goes into that, including buying the media itself, which is expensive. So I'm sure you media personnel should understand that it isn't cheap. Even taking a full page advert in the papers comes at cost. Color ads, it adds up. And so that's the nature of the beast. We live in a country where these things are expensive. And so if you want to utilize it, you'll have to pay for it. But it reminds me of what President Kufuor said a few years ago. We know the cost of everything, but not the value of everything. So let's weigh how much we're paying as against what we're getting. And then it puts things in the right perspective. I think it's money well spent if at the end of the day we can drive this campaign successfully, get people their digital addresses, build this database that we need, use it to build the foundations of a formal economy. And the other day, the finance minister or the GRA boss was saying that only 1.2 million people pay taxes.
The GRA boss.
The GRA boss. And the majority of people who earn an income in this country are in the informal economy. So it is in our interest to make sure that whether you're a chop bars keeper, a kenke seller, a watches seller, or coffee brookman seller, once you earn more than the taxable threshold, you also contribute your bit towards the development of our country. We can only do that if we can identify them and rope them into widen the tax base to include them. But if you don't know where they are operating, how much they are making, how do you even begin to rope them into the tax net? So for me, if we're paying 3.6 million to ensure that my watches seller and my kinky seller all have a digital address, are traceable, can get credit from the banks, and we can also get the local authorities to tax them, then we'll be widening the tax base. And maybe 2-3 years from now, the informal economy will be contributing much more tax revenue than the formal economy. And it is doable. Right. It's about 70-80% of our entire economy. But it is outside there, and nobody can really work with them. So for me, it is money well spent.
Okay. And now for those who question the cost of the app, $2.5 million, and are also asking why we have to pay that amount and still pay Google $400,000 every year, can you just clarify?
I've said this so many times, so anyway, but not on your station.
Yes.
We're paying 9.9 million CDs for this application, a one-time payment. The developers are saying that for this year, they have had to pay $400,000 to Google, which is not our cost. It's inclusive. It's included in the 9.9 million. So is the publicity cost. The 3.6 is also included in the 9.9 million that we're paying. So if you look at it, really, if we're getting all that and we've just made a one-time payment, then it is not that bad.
So from next year, we're not paying anything to Google?
From next year, we may not even be using Google.
Okay.
It's a mapping application that they choose to use this year. They tell us that they are in conversations with Google about whether or not they should continue. They had to pay that because they needed that to develop whatever system that they were developing. But that's not our cost. It's like me buying a car, and I said that somewhere, and they tell me that it has a fancy Rolls-Royce engine which costs so much. Tough. I just bought a car for 100 cedis. If you've put in a fancy Rolls-Royce engine which costs you that much, that's you getting technical and enjoying, getting your rocks off about the fanciful thing that you have developed. I appreciate that you've given me very good quality, but this is what I'm paying for the product that you're selling. What goes into it, really, you take the money that I'm paying you and pay whatever subcontractors or suppliers that you have to deliver my product. That's not my concern. My interest is that next year the application continues to work. Okay. Whether you use another mapping system or not, the application should work. My database should work. And that's what we're interested in. But I have no doubt that once they conclude their conversations with Google, they may have some arrangement that they can live with, which will enable them to continue using the services of Google going forward. But I think we got a pretty good deal, because one of those who bid, and I hesitate to put their name out, I won't, was going to charge us 170 million for that same a mapping application. So if we ended up getting something which works for 9.9 million, I don't think it's a bad deal.
Okay. Tonight is the Minister for Communications, Mrs. Ursula Owusu-Ekuful. Now, how secure is this app?
They assure me that they have the level of security that is currently available worldwide in this application. Like I keep saying, I'm not a technical person, but we have a cybersecurity advisor, and so he's working with them as well. And the National Information Technology Agency is also very much involved with what they're doing. And so the technical people assure me that so far, the level of security and the different layers of security that they have protects the information that they are acquiring. So I can only take their word for it.
Okay. I want to move away from the GPS now and talk about you're the first female communications minister for this country. How's that going for you?
I am not focused too much on the first, but on the work. And it's not bad. It's just that I don't have a life now. And it's been a very busy year because there's been so much that one needed to do. But I am enjoying it. People say I thrive on stress, so it's not showing on my face, and I thank them for it. But it's an incredible amount of work. I have good support. Could be better, but we're working very well together. My deputies are putting in an enormous amount of work and being very, very supportive. The team we have here, the civil servants, are also working very, very hard. And so it's been exciting. I don't know, maybe you should ask them what it feels like to have a female
communications minister.
So, of course, one of the first few statements I made to them was that we will not tolerate sexual harassment of any kind under my watch. And they were like, oh, madam, but how? And I said, no. There will be no chewing of homegrown chickens. If they want to eat chickens, they should go outside. We will not tolerate any Ifeankuko business here. It does tend to take a bit away from the work, and you have all kinds of personal issues interfering with work, and I don't want to deal with that too. But I think it's going well. Yeah.
You're right when you say it's been very busy. You started off with going very tough on media houses. Some of them sanctioned, and your name was all over the place. The minority actually came in to say that it was an attempt to render a lot of people, like 5,000 of them, unemployed with the way you were going. Have things settled now?
I believe so. I think they've understood that we don't just pass laws for the fun of it. And we give up a bit of our personal freedoms for the general good. And that's what all civilized societies do. And so if we have regulations which guide the media, who are the fourth estate of the realm, and hold everyone else accountable, then they can't say that they shouldn't be held accountable to their own regulations. A bit of a sacred cow, and you've been untouchable so far, and that's why I'm getting a bit of bashing. But I think even the media understands that for us to hold the Petroleum Authority, the gas stations, Galamsey, and everyone else accountable, we also need to be accountable for the use of the spectrum, the rules guiding the use of the spectrum that regulates our business. And so I think largely the dust has settled. As we indicated, I also blamed the NCA, but I couldn't fault the NCA of today for the actions of the NCA of yesterday. If in times past they chose not to enforce their law, it doesn't mean this group should also not enforce their law. But then we needed to do a bit of mitigation and of the fines, and so we sat there and discussed it and came up with a 50% reduction in the fines and reviewing those which have been revoked on a case-by-case basis. And I think it's going well. There have been a few reprieves handed down already. I think some of the stations are back on air. As for the community radio stations, all of them have been asked to continue operating, but to regularize their operations. But if you're running a business concern and you are enjoined by law to pay your social security and your taxes, and you don't do that, and we require proof of that to continue to renew your authorization, you can't come and say that, oh, yeah, sorry, you beg, we should give you more time. Pay your taxes, pay your social security, pay your license regulatory fees. If you haven't registered the company, go and register it. Let's do things properly and clean up the various spaces in which we work. And I think that message has gone down well. So even those who are pleading for mitigation, at the end of the day, admit that, yes, we didn't quite apply the law, but temper justice with mercy. And then I'm like, for how long are we going to be tampering justice with mercy and allowing people to just do what they like? We need to draw a line and say that, okay, we've had a free ride so far, but going forward, we are all going to abide by the law in all sectors. That's what will bring sanity into this country and put us on the same level as the countries we visit and admire for their orderliness and cleanliness and the way things work. It is just an application of the rules there which makes things work. We can also do that here and let Ghana be the Switzerland of Africa. Let them come and see a country which works. And I think we can do that because Ghanaians living and working in Western countries, nobody tells you to live by the rules. The system will force you to conform the minute you get there. If you try not to, you pay the penalty thereof. So let's also move to that point. Then we can have our institutions will work. The revenues due the state will be paid on time and to the proper authorities, not into people's pockets. We will have the revenues that we need to develop the country. So the roads that we want, the electricity, water, all that. It's these little things that enable us to gather the revenues to use them. And if everybody is doing what they're supposed to do according to their own regulations, we would have a very beautiful country to live in. So it's not Ursula being mean. It's just we need to start from somewhere. So you're expecting the NCA not to repeat the mistakes of the old NCA? Oh, they have been told in no uncertain terms that we will not sit there for them to also sleep on their job. If that's what they did in the past, we expect that not just the NCA, all the other agencies under the ministry would also, and every ministry, not just this ministry, would also apply their regulations and do their work. One of the favorite sayings of one of my favorite people, Ursula Owusu-Ekuful, is that it's very simple, isn't it? Everybody should just do their work. And then, like little lights, it comes together and it illuminates the whole. That's all.
It's easy.
Could it be simpler than that?
Well.
Eh?
for those who say that they are willing to do their jobs, but there are logistical constraints. I mean, it becomes a very tough one for them. And it's not just the agencies under your ministry, but if you look across, there are agencies who really want to work, but there are difficulties, there are challenges.
Yeah, but there's a lot you can do with the limited resources at your disposal. It doesn't have to be an ideal situation before you can deliver. And you'll be amazed what you can do with what you have now, instead of looking for, everybody wants a 4-wheel drive and this and that. Really? The colonial education inspectors, they didn't even have bicycles. And yet school inspectors, they did their work and the schools were working. Why do we think we need all these new, people don't even walk anymore. You have to ride everywhere. And we only walk when we travel. Why? What's wrong with walking? When I was a child, I used to walk everywhere. And even my family called me Kagdi. You remember who Kagdi was?
No.
That shows your age. One of the first people who walked around the country for charity, I believe, was called Kagdi. So if you're a walker like me, they called you Kagdi. Yes. I wonder where he is now.
Yeah.
Young chap. This was showing my age, many years ago. Yeah.
We have a fair idea. All right, we'll come back in a bit to talk. I'll come back to state of affairs. I want to speak to you now about the telcos. First of all, the merger between Airtel and Tigo. I've seen them rolling out some ads assuring Airtel customers of the same services they were enjoying. But so far, have you been impressed with the processes, the way they're going?
I believe so. And I'm happy to have been, here at this point in time to facilitate this process. I think we need greater consolidation in the telecoms market for a country of our population with a number of companies operating. It was fragmenting the profits for the companies and their effectiveness a bit. And so pooling the resources together, I hope, would deliver better services to their customers. And so let me just urge all Airtel Tigo customers that they can only look forward to a better time ahead and should stay put. And I'm encouraged at the vibrancy in the sector too. There's a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes, and there may possibly be other major announcements soon. It's energized their competitors as well. MTN is doing well, so is Vodafone. Not so sure about Glo. I haven't heard too much about them lately, and I need to have a conversation with them as well about whether or not they intend to continue operating in this market and what their business model is going forward. But there's some cleaning up going to happen in that space, and we will have a few announcements to make before long.
Some sanctions?
Yes, imminent. But
sanctions.
I don't want to preempt.
Okay. Would it be about quality?
Yes, because the NCA continues to monitor their quality of service standards, and where they fall short, the sanctions are specified in the regulations, and we should be hearing some announcements soon. But the media is excited about possible sanctions on telecommunications companies. When the sanctions fell on you, you were screaming that you should be exempted from it. Why?
Well, I'm sure even with the telcos, some of them will cry that they should be exempted. So you'd expect that in the media as well. But yes, on the issue of quality, you look around and people keep still complaining about their calls dropping. There's the issue of mobile money fraud and customers who are complaining every day that they're not being protected enough by the telcos who are offering these mobile money services.
And actually, there's an element of it's not all entirely true. some of it is not the telcos. I'm not holding brief for them. But if somebody calls you and says you've won a prize, when you know you haven't participated in any such promotion, and send your PIN number, despite the fact that telcos have continually been drumming it into our heads that they will never ever ask you to send your PIN number to anybody. So don't. So there's that element of attitudinal change that we need to also be aware of. But we need to step up our education in that area about how we should use our mobile money wallets. Going forward, we're going to encourage more electronic payments as against cash payments. I'm even pushing for all government services to be paid for electronically to reduce the cash in the system. And so it is going to be even more in use than it is now. We want to drive up mobile money usage and all forms of electronic payments. And so I'm excited that this month the interoperability framework for all electronic payments will be launched as well, which will make it easy to transfer money regardless of how you're doing it. Mobile money, credit card, electronic transfers, point of sale devices, all of that. And even the new national ID card has a payment solution on it, so you can use it for contactless payments as well. We want to grow digital financial services, but we need to educate the people more about the possibilities it opens up, the ease of transacting business that it offers, but the dangers that are attendant to the use of these digital financial services as well. It entails, somebody said Ghanaians are too trusting. Maybe they can add that we're too gullible. And so we believe what people tell us, regardless of the fact that there are fraudsters out there who also see an opportunity to expand their fraudulent businesses through these electronic platforms. So we all have to be on our guard and practice more cyber hygienic practices and learn to spot the danger signs before it hits. That's why we had the Cyber Week, which I think went very well. And through that, I think one of the most patronized sessions was that one on mobile money, and the room was packed, and I'm glad about the interest generated. We're going to scale up our public education in this space as well, and the cybersecurity advisor has been tasked to do that. The technical working group is also doing an enormous amount of work in that regard. So you should be hearing more about that. But please, and let me use this medium too, the fraudsters out there impersonating ministers, claiming that they're offering jobs on Facebook and through WhatsApp platforms and all. No minister is giving protocol appointments on Facebook for a fee. So if anybody asks you to do that, that person is a fraud. It's a fraudster. It's a liar. It's a thief. Report the person to the nearest law enforcement officers. I've had all kinds of forms with my supposed mobile money number on it. I don't have any such number. So please, if anybody asks you to pay money into a mobile money account of Ursula, that person is defrauding you. Don't do it. The Minister for Education, Foreign Affairs, the First Lady, Second Lady, they've all been victims. And people actually believe that and are paying money for supposed protocol appointments which don't exist. Please, let's all be on the alert. There are people who are using all kinds of dubious means to defraud us. Let's not fall prey to them. But it entails us being more cautious about the way we live and work in cyberspace. It's not going to end. We're going to do even more of that. And there's an electronic payments platform for government services, which is active and is being used. So for payments for all manner of services, from passport applications through driver's licenses to payment of taxes to registrar generals, all of that can be done electronically. And we're encouraging people to do that. But be careful where you are sending your money. And that's why it always prompts you whether to pay or not. Don't just hit the yes button. Read what it is telling you before you hit the button and approve the payment.
Thank you very much. For somebody who says that, you're just a lawyer, you seem to understand the technicalities in the sector quite well.
I'm trying to keep up with them. There are too many acronyms here, but I'm trying.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ursula Owusu-Ekuful, the communications